It's important for you to understand then that when you begin to become defined by a vision of the future, it only requires two things: a clear intention of what you want. An intention is just getting clear on what you want, and it is a creative act. And when you begin to ask an open-ended question like, what do I want in my life? Do I want health? Do I want wealth? Do I want freedom? Do I want joy? Do I want great relationships? What do I want? When you start asking that open-ended question, you turn on your frontal lobe. That part of your brain that is the creative center, that is the CEO, the boss, the symphony leader. And that part of your brain has connections to all other parts of the brain. It begins to select different networks of neurons when you ask that question, from knowledge that you've learned neurologically or experiences that you've had. And it begins to seamlessly piece them together in a new way. And when you make your brain fire in a new way, all of a sudden, when it fires in tandem, you get a picture in your mind, and that's called intention. Now, to the passionate person, a person who comes out of their resting state and they can hold that image in their mind, the thought in their mind literally becomes the experience. And the end product of an experience is called an emotion. And when they're in the present moment and they're embracing that future, the brain doesn't know the difference between what's going on in here and what's going on out there. And now we begin to install the neurological hardware in the brain to look like the experience has already happened. Now the brain is no longer a record of the past. It's beginning to become a map to the future. And when they feel the emotions of enthusiasm and theos, filled with God, inspired, grateful, thankful, appreciative, in love with life, a joy for existence, the moment they feel that emotion, that elevated emotion, their body as the unconscious mind does not know the difference between the experience that's going on in their outer world and the experience that's going on in their inner world. Their body's believing it's in that future reality in the present moment. And the side effect of that is it begins to signal new genes in new ways to change the body to look like the experience has already happened. And when you combine a thought and a feeling, remember that's a state of being, you just move from living in your past present reality to living in a future present reality. And when you're feeling that emotion, you're giving your body a taste of the future. The takeaway is that you already know how to do this. That everybody that's watching this online course has already done something great in their life. Because you've done something great and you have all the machinery, you did that exact process. You started to think about the what if questions, and then you started to think about the choices you had to make. You began to review the things you had to do. You had to begin to set goals which would become the experiences of your future. And every time you wrote those experiences and goals down, you started to feel more of those elevated emotions, and you were literally biologically creating a new self. And you did something really brilliantly. When you began to become conscious of the unconscious thoughts that you were not going to let slip by your awareness unnoticed, and you wrote down the thoughts like, I'll start tomorrow, I'm too tired, this is never going to work, I don't feel like it, it didn't work last time. When you start becoming conscious of those unconscious thoughts, so conscious of them that you wouldn't let them go by unchecked during your normal day, that's the process of change. When you began to review the choices you were no longer going to make, and you became so conscious of those unconscious choices that you wouldn't make that unconscious choice again, you were changing. When you began to review the habits and behaviors of things that you no longer wanted to do, and you became so conscious of those unconscious habits and those behaviors that you wouldn't go unconscious again, even how you spoke. And you decided what experiences you were going to stay away from. And you looked at the emotions that kept bringing you to a lower denominator, and you became so conscious that you wouldn't lower your energy that day. You were in the process of change. And the beauty behind it is that you kept reminding yourself of who you no longer wanted to be, and you kept reminding yourself of who you do want to be. And the act of doing that over and over again began to change you. And most people then, they reach a point in their life where all of a sudden they know it's going to happen. And when you know it's going to happen in your life, you take your foot off the gas pedal and you know it's going to come to you. And when it happens in your life, it's no longer about the event or the material thing that you created. It's about the fact that you created it. And when you realize that you created it, you feel more in love with yourself. You feel more happy. You feel more whole. You're more caring. You're more kind. You're more giving. You're more present with everybody else, because that experience then changed you. So then, the process that I'm talking about requires then that you're going to have to then begin to get beyond your personality that's connected to your past, present, personal reality. So then, if the change is to get beyond your body, the habits and emotions that it's addicted to, think about this. If you're waking up every morning and you're not being defined by a vision of the future, and you start your day and you see the same people and you go to the same places and you do the exact same thing at the exact same time, now it's no longer that your personality is creating your personal reality. Now your personal reality is creating your personality, because every person, every object, everything, every place has a neurological network from your past already mapped in your brain. And because you've experienced every person, every object, everything, every place, at every time in your life, you have an emotion connected to them. So then, most people then, if they're not priming their brain and body into the future, the moment they return back to their reality, they're thinking and feeling in the past. In other words, their environment is controlling how they think and feel. So then to change then is to be greater than your environment, to be greater than the conditions in your life, to be greater than the circumstances in your world. That's the act of change. And if you're waking up every morning and your body is programmed into a predictable future based on what you've done in the past, in the familiar past, then you're going to have to get beyond your concept of that timeline to fall into the present moment. So then how do we do that? That's what this course is about. You're going to have to sit down and you're going to have to close your eyes and take your attention off your outer environment. We're going to play music in the background to fill the space so you disconnect from your associations, from everything in your outer world. If you're sitting still and you sit your body down and it's not getting up and doing something, and you're getting beyond the emotions and habits and memories in your body, then all of a sudden then you're not eating anything. You're not smelling anything. You're not tasting anything. You're not getting up and feeling and experiencing anything. All of a sudden, when you do that properly, you're going to get beyond your connection to your body. And if you're not thinking about your schedule in the future or remembering some past experience and you're completely in the present moment, you're getting beyond time. And that's exactly what we use in the meditation model. That if you are going to heal your body, you have to get beyond your body. If you are going to change some aspect of your personal reality, you have to get beyond your personality. If you are going to create some new future in time, you got to get beyond the predictable future of every time that you've been living in the same way. So then the model of meditation is going inward. The word meditation, becoming familiar with. You have to become familiar with your unconscious thoughts. You have to become familiar with your automatic behaviors. You have to become familiar with those feelings that are connected to your past. So familiar with them that you would never go unconscious in your waking day. And the more you know thyself, means you're no longer that old self. And if you begin to think about the thoughts you do want to fire and wire in your brain, and you put your attention and you put your energy behind them, you're going to begin to make new connections in your brain. And if you begin to rehearse in one day how you're going to live that day, the act of rehearsing mentally begins to install the neurological hardware in your brain. In other words, if you keep reviewing what you're going to do and you're in the present moment, your brain doesn't know the difference between the outer world and the inner world. Your brain is going to look like you're already wealthy, you're already healthy, you're already free, because you primed your brain into the future. And if you keep doing it over and over again and installing that hardware, firing and wiring the same circuits, the hardware will become a software program. You'll start thinking like a genius. You'll start acting in more unlimited ways because you installed the circuits for it. So then, in this course, it's important for you to understand what it means to be in the present moment. That you are going to have to execute a will that's greater than the program. And it makes sense then that every single time you're sitting in a meditation and your body is used to feeling unhappy, used to feeling angry, used to feeling frustrated, used to feeling impatient, resentful, that just like an addict that's craving a chemical, that if your body is not reading emails or stuck in traffic and it's not judging a coworker, but you're sitting there in a meditation with your eyes closed and your body's craving those familiar chemicals, that you're going to have to execute a will that's greater than the body as the mind. And when we start doing this properly and we start working with the body and we start reconditioning it back into the present moment, it starts to trust us more. And just like an animal that you're training every single day to stay in one place, that's exactly what you're doing with the body. And if you keep doing it over and over, sooner or later, it acquiesces. And as you keep conditioning your body into the present moment, and every time you condition it back to the present moment, you are telling it that it's no longer the mind, that you're the mind. Every time you do that, there's a liberation of energy. And you begin to free yourself from the chains of the past. And the side effect of that is you're going to go from particle to wave, from matter to energy. And as you begin to liberate energy, that becomes available energy for you to design a new destiny, to heal your body, to create a mystical experience. And the liberation of energy then causes you to begin to connect to that unified field. It's important for you to understand that all potentials in the quantum field exist in the generous present moment. And you're going to have to work and labor for that present moment. And I want to teach you to understand the difference between when you're there and when you're not. And we're going to give you a roadmap of all the different exits to stay away from in the brain and in the body. And if you follow the instructions and you pay attention to what we tell you, you'll begin to carve a path neurologically between your conscious mind and your subconscious mind. And you'll learn how to begin to change your brain waves and begin to access that quantum field.